much that shit pissed me off.
Yeah, I have all my bars and I was on the Wi-Fi. It's still like, what the hell?
Yeah. I think they don't like it when you start talking real stuff.
Yeah, that's how I get down. You know what I mean? But hey, we here. We still here up on here, and at the end of the day, YouTube still provides us a platform to speak to each other. So we take what we can get.
Yeah, until Elon shuts it down.
Yeah. You think Elon gonna shut down these Twitter Spaces?
What's that?
Do you think Elon gonna shut down these Twitter Spaces?
Hell no. You know how much money? You know how much engagement he got off the one he did? He ain't shutting that down.
Good point.
He'll probably revamp it.
Yeah.
Probably look like Clubhouse, so Nigerians can feel at home.
Yeah.
No shots today. I'm sorry. No shots today.
So that means y'all gonna have Twitter Spaces smelling musty.
It's going to be a lot of. It's going to be the Akata zone.
Nigerians, it's just jokes. You're gonna be around Black Americans. We're gonna crack jokes. That's part of it.
A little bit of roasting didn't hurt anybody except the animals.
Never. We I used to get roasted at church.
Oh yeah.
Come into church with some church clothes that ain't fitting right. You get them clowned in the house of the Lord.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you get clowned if you don't know the scripture.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, or if you can't read, you be reading there, thy, and thee, and then if you used to reading at school, they ain't got no there, thy, and thee at school. But you got to read a Bible study. You mess up one of the words, you about to get clowned, and your grandmama gonna smack you upside the head.
Yes, sir. I guess we could probably start there with gospel. There you go. Let's start with gospel.
For sure.
Dwann B, I don't know how much of an authority you are on gospel, but why is everybody trying to imitate that Black American gospel sound?
Well, I'm kind of an authority. I played the drums in church for 20 years, and I still sometimes do when the money's right. Gospel is where the church is where our music is codified and coming together. You know what I mean? Everything comes together at the church because the church is the proving grounds for your musicianship. You're not anything if you can't play in church. That's part of the reason why music doesn't have as much soul today, because they're picking people who didn't grow up in the church. Whitney Houston, church. Aretha Franklin, church. Maurice White, George Clinton. If you break down to it, everybody had some time in the church. The only exception was really Michael Jackson, and the reason why he can be an exception is because he grew up in the church in Motown, so he had even more intense backing. With him being in Motown. Motown, when Michael Jackson was 8, 9 years old, he's around Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, The Temptations. So he's the only person that could really circumvent the church because he was in an actually more intense environment than the church, and he was being guided by producers and musicians that come from the church. So he still got baptized in the church, even though he wasn't there. So the church. Oh, got these fools calling me. My bad. The church is where you go to find the funk. You know what I mean? And that's where you get the feeling, because church teaches you how to emote the music. Church it's not a cerebral like in today's music. A lot of current music, it's all about the hit people that are in their head, they're in their mind. That's why you can't have a decent music conversation these days. Everyone wants to go, who's your favorite top 5? This person or that person? All that dumb talk. This is music, not basketball. And in church, you realize that, there's a range. You have some singers with a raspy voice, some with a clear voice. Some people play a little behind the beat. Some people play ahead of the beat. But the church is where all of that comes together, because church is the one place you can start at the age of 3 or 4 years old. That's the one place you can start at that young. That's the one place you can be getting paid to play at 10 or 11, 12 years old. Everything, the church is the nucleus to all of our music. You cannot have our music without the church. And it's funny too, because I remember I had a conversation with my father-in-law, Mr. James Carmichael. I asked him how did he get that deal with Motown, because he had a good deal. He was in Motown from the late 60s, through the 90s. And I asked him, how did he sign with Motown? and he told me flat out, Motown was looking for the church. He had gotten very popular, producing gospel albums during the '60s, and quite as kept, little do people know, gospel is actually a genre that is a response to rock and roll. Rock and roll slash R&B became a genre form before gospel music. So when we're talking about the church and gospel music, they're two separate things. Gospel music didn't really become a genre until you get to the late '40s into the '50s, as far as the record industry goes. But he got his start, Mr. Carmichael, with the gospel, and he has taken a lot of gospel songs to #1 on the gospel charts. Well, there were no gospel charts back then, but that's where he got recognized, and that's how he got his job at Motown. And when he went to Motown, his primary assignment was the Jackson Five. Going back to when I was talking about Michael Jackson in the church, Mr. Carmichael was assigned. Him and Hal Davis, they did most of their music at Motown. He did music with the Temptations and the Supremes and everyone else. But for the most part, he had that gospel feel. And that's why he and Michael and the Jackson Five had such a chemistry. He brought the gospel nature out of the Jackson Five. And the gospel is where you connect to people's soul. That's why you can go to a church, and that's why if you go to a church, think about it. Go to a funeral, and the minute the organ player plays a minor chord, you're going to cry. I don't care if you halfway knew that person, liked the person, didn't like the person. The minute they hit that minor chord in that gospel tone, you're going to cry. Just like when you're in church and it's on Easter Sunday or Christmas Sunday, and they play those songs in the major chords that are more uplifting, you're going to feel good. You're guaranteed to feel better with gospel music because gospel music taps into your organs. That's why they use an organ. That's why they call it an organ. That's why when you fall in love with someone, they say that person pulled on your heart strings. Life is a song, and gospel is where that song is interpreted from the soul. And gospel is the nucleus to all that we do. I know that's a long answer, but I like to be very thorough and detailed when I give answers.
I feel you on that. I like that. All right. Gospel music.
Hey, hold on. I thought I was in my AirPods. I'm over here still on speaker, man. Y'all hearing all that background noise? Let me turn my AirPods on. Come on, AirPods. There we go. Thought I was in my AirPods the whole time. Hello?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I
That
got
all
you.
right?
I got you. All right, we
All
good
right,
now.
cool. Yeah, so gospel music. So, all right. So, do you see much change over the years with gospel music? 'Cause I know they used to use a lot of hip hop into it now.
Go ahead. Say that again.
Wait, you probably can't. Hold on a second.
I couldn't hear you. I'm on my.
I was saying, um, how much do you think gospel's changed over the years? 'Cause I know they use a lot of quote unquote street elements into it now.
Well, gospel and traditional music and regular R&B has always had a symbiotic relationship. There's always been a push pull between the church and that's always been that way with gospel. See, gospel is very conservative. Gospel is the roots of it. Gospel doesn't like to push forward, but music gets pushed forward, however, through the secular environment because when our musicians are playing in church, mostly all of them play on Friday, Saturday night in the nightclubs, and that's always been a contentious relationship between the church and the so-called secular. I'll tell you right now, my father-in-law, he was still playing music in church in the '70s after selling millions of records with the Jackson Five and the Commodores and Temptations. He was still going to play in church. And I remember asking him, I was like, did you tell the people in church that you played, that you were a producer for Motown? And he said, yes, some of them knew, but even in the '70s, I mean, when I talked to him, he said when Brick House dropped, his name had kind of gotten all over the place when the Commodores dropped Brick House, and Zoom that was on the same album, and he was like he was literally trying to find a way to not let the people in church know that that was him that made that music because of the way the church views secular music. So what happens is the church automatically is pushed forward because the same musicians in church are also playing the stuff that's secular. So the secular sort of pushes it forward, and the church tries to pull it back. And it's this push-pull relationship between the church. It's always been that way. We saw with Kurt Franklin. When you go back and listen to the song "Stomp" by Kurt Franklin, that's nothing but that's One Nation Under a Groove by Parliament Funkadelic. Dun 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 dun. All Kurt Franklin did was bring the funk to the church. But when Kurt Franklin first brought the funk to the church, there was a pushback. There was a pullback. Like, what are you doing? This sounds like yada 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 music. So that happens because again, we're dealing with the same musicians, the same. And then on top of that, the church also brings in the youth. There's a thing that the church does. The church is where the young, all music is in tune with the black male between the age of 14 and 24. That's the vibration of music. That's where music is. Between black males between the age of 14 and 24 create the culture of music. And so the church is where a lot of times you're dealing with Corey Henry. He was playing the organ in church when he was 3. You know what I mean? A lot of musicians start at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old in church. So by the time they get to teenage years, they're now ready to go on the road. And so what happens is in secular music, the way it was traditionally before how music is done today, because the way music is done today was intentionally destroyed. But when we had our own system and how we cultivated music as black people, what would happen is this is how the phases work out. You get your young musicians, usually teenagers or early 20s, and then they play with your older lead that's produced by an even older producer. Example, when we're talking about, say, let's use James Brown for an example. When James Brown went to the funk, he went and got those young boys out of Ohio named Bootsy and Catfish Collins and Frank Cashwati on drums. He went to the teenagers to get the sound. When George Clinton got Funkadelic together, the Parliaments were a doo-wop group out of the 50s that were with Motown Records. And they didn't really have any big hits with Motown. They mostly did demo singing with Motown. So what they did when the Parliament name was under contract, they created a new group called Funkadelic. And Funkadelic was just the kids that were around the barbershop in Plainfield, New Jersey, Eddie Hazel, and those guys. And so George, being the older person, got the youth. And then when that elderly, well, not he wasn't elderly, he was like in his 30s, but they were in their teens. And then he went and turned around and got Bootsy and Catfish from James Brown, because Bootsy and Catfish were only with James Brown for like 11 months. He went and got them, and then when he had that fusion of older and younger, that's what made Parliament Funkadelic, the sound that it was. Same thing with Earth and Fire. You had the young cats, Philip Beatty, lead singer, Al McKay was out of here in LA. He played with the Watts 103rd Street Band in 1970. They were young, they were teenagers. They got with Maurice White, who had just left Ramsey Lewis in the 60s to form Earth and Fire. He was about 10 years older than his musicians, but Earth and Fire didn't really get codified and become the sound of Earth and Fire until they brought in Charles Stephanie out of Chicago, who was 10 years older than Maurice White. And when you get that relationship between old, middle age, and youth, that's where the best music comes from, because you have the sound and the vibration of the ones in their 20s and their teens. They have the natural sound and vibration of the sound. And then the older musicians have the wisdom on how to layer music and put it together. And so it's that relationship between old, young, gospel, and secular. When all 4 of those things intersect, that's where we get the best of our music.
Nice. All right. Gospel, such a rich history. All right, let's move on. Now you touched on R&B. Let's move over to hip hop. Now I'm gonna talk about basically the golden age. Now, what was your introduction to hip hop?
For me, it was NWA. NWA, and then but for me, my brother would play NWA, but in Too Short, my uncle, the old Too Short albums and the old NWA albums. But for me personally, what got me all the way into hip hop was America. I liked America's Most Wanted, but Death Certificate by Ice Cube, because that album is a prophecy. If you ask me, that's one of the top 10 most well-written albums in music history. Death Certificate by Ice Cube. Why? Because I grew up in South Central LA in the same area that he was talking about. He recorded that around the same time as Boys in the Hood. And like if y'all remember that scene in Boys in the Hood, where Ferris and his Jerry curl was walking down the street, and he bumped Morris Chestnut, and he was like, "What you looking at, nigga?" And then Morris Chestnut had the worst goddamn comeback in TV history. I don't know, figure. Whoever wrote that line should never write another line again. That was the worst comeback ever. Well, anyway, when that happened, I was on my bike as a kid watching them film that scene because I lived like a few blocks away from that area of Crenshaw. And there was a lot going on at that time in LA. I mean, I'm seeing drive-bys, I'm seeing people get shot. I'll be going down to the little corner liquor store. The Asians is tripping, talking shit to us. It was a lot going on. So when he wrote Death Certificate, he wrote in those 19 songs, everyone goes to No Vaseline. That's probably the least of all the songs on that album. You go back into that song, Us, Black Korea, A Summer Vacation. This is the shit that I'm seeing every day. So it's like when I walk outside, Ice Cube was chronicling my life. This like I'm 10 years old. So this stage, my mom has let me ride my bike all across town. So I'm riding my bike everywhere. So I'm seeing the east side and the west side. And Death Certificate is speaking to my life. And then the LA riots happened. And I always tell people, if you want to understand the temperature of LA and what led to the LA riots, all you have to do is listen to Ice Cube's Death Certificate album. That album was a prophecy. He told you what was coming. And he also had the inner, my dad, I wasn't into old school music at that time, but my dad was into Funkadelic, and my dad was into all that old school music and James Brown. So when I listened to Bird in the Hand, Two in the Bush, that's BB King. My grandpa used to listen to BB King. I think it's a song Ghetto Woman by BB King. Excuse the ambulance. I live down the street from a firehouse, and I'm outside smoking a blunt. But anyway, Death Certificate, I mean, I'm hearing the samples from B.B. King that my grandfather would listen to. I'm hearing the Parliament Funkadelic samples. I'm hearing the samples, and I'm listening to the message. And so when I listen to Death Certificate, to me, my personal opinion of hip hop is that's the standard. Good music that brings social awareness and consciousness. And we all got to know that social awareness was taken out of our music during the late 70s into the 80s when the white paper report we dropped and they basically took the soul out of soul music. We always got to go back to the white paper report 1978 that basically said we have to separate black people from conscious music because we're too conscious. I'm sorry, 1972. We're too conscious and our music is too conscious. And so as the 70s went along, they started pulling the consciousness out. And then when you get to the 80s, they pulled the strings out. And the strings are one of the most important components to all music because that's what swirls your emotions. They took the swing out, then they took the drums out, then they took the live bass out. And then so by the time we get to the late 80s, R&B is just a whole bunch of corny ass, music talking about how much you love someone with these grown ass men with these big shags, not saying shit. So our consciousness was pulled out, during the 80s. And so was the live music. It was some good love music, but they weren't saying anything to speak to the message to what's going on. You can find an 80s R&B song talking about the crack epidemic. That's when hip hop came in. And hip hop was something that took us back to our consciousness because black music has always had a consciousness. Blues, consciousness. Jazz, consciousness. Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday. When you listen to It's Time by Max Roach, 1962. Jazz was at the forefront of consciousness. When Max Roach was talking about, it's time, basically it's time for our goddamn rights, and we're gonna set this shit on fire. And Max Roach redefined how the drums were played with that aggression and that tone and that steam. When you get to the 60s, Respect by Aretha Franklin, our music was talking about something of substance. Even when you get to the 70s, if you want to understand metaphysics, you better listen to some Funkadelic. They telling you who you are. They telling you who you are from an astrological point of view. If you want to understand Earth and how Earth operates and how to walk through life, Earth and Fire, Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson teaches you how to fall in love. Ohio Players, all of these, Steve Arrington, Slade, all of this music, as great as it was, still taught you about life. But those motherfuckers took that shit from us. And so when the early 90s come and hip hop come, it took us back to who we are culturally as a people. Music that sounds good, feels good, is gonna give your ass a motherfucking message. And that's what hip hop is. And when people stray away from that, that ain't hip hop. That's some new shit. And on my music tree, if you look at the top of the tree, I call that shit, all this new fuckboy music that they put out, I call that hip hop. It's not hip hop. That's hip hop. That's that other shit.
When we do it, it's gonna have a stream of consciousness, and hip hop brought the consciousness back to black music.
Nice. All right. If anybody wants to come up and ask Dwann B a question about music, feel free. Just request the mic. We're gonna keep it going. You must be lighting up way too many blunts. That's the third one I heard.
Hey, I be talking so long the blunt go out. Shit.
Jesus. All right.
Hey, look,
Is there?
I just
I've always
walked
wanted
I
to
just
know this
walked
because
4 miles on Rain Cane this morning. I'm probably gonna smoke too. My body tired.
Oh Jesus. All right. Let me ask you this because I've always wanted to know this from a West Coast cat. Is there a difference between the sound of LA and the sound of the Bay?
Yes. See, one thing I appreciate about the Bay don't have one sound. Neither does LA, but the Bay is a little bit more diverse than LA. And it goes back to the 60s. It really, because the Bay is really where funk really got his roots through Sly and the Family Stone. Sly and the Family Stone creating that funk sound. They were the first to use a drum machine. When you go back and listen to a Family Affair, and some of that stuff, that was a drum machine that they were using underneath the live drum set. Larry Graham brought in a thump bass. Funk wouldn't be funk without thump bass. Dun, 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 dun. And the reason why Larry Graham used to play that funk bass, play with that thump, because his band sometimes didn't have a drummer, so he would thump the bass on the 2 and the 4. That's some Bay Area shit. You know what I mean? Then you had the Grateful Dead at the same time. At the same time, you had Tower of Power. All different sounds. Then when you get to the late 70s, you got Function. And none of those Bay Area bands sounded right. And then you get to the 80s, and then you get into hip hop. Too Short don't sound like MC Hammer. MC Hammer don't sound like Mac Dre. I mean, the Bay has so much diversity within its sound. It doesn't get enough credit. I think part of the reason why it doesn't get enough credit is because there's so much diversity. Sometimes you don't even know you're listening to music from the Bay, because you can have two artists from the Bay that sound nothing alike. When it comes to LA, remember this. Remember this. This comes to all music. Whether you're talking about West, whether you're talking about jazz, hip hop, blues, or whatever, R&B. Music is a sonic interpretation of your immediate environment. That's what music is. Music is a sonic interpretation of your immediate environment. So when it comes to different sounds, music takes on the sounds of the city. That's why Detroit, if you listen to Motown, early Motown Detroit, it was a lot of listen to them, the Supremes, and listen to the Four Tops, the Temptations. It's a lot of music was dun, 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 with the drummer hit not just on 2 and 4. He may have hit the snare on one, two, three, and 4, and it was a pace to the music. Why was it a pace to Detroit music of the 60s? Well, the reason is the musicians all worked for the goddamn Ford and GM factory. So when you work on an assembly line, you get that energy, you get that tempo in your blood. So when you go to the studio tonight, the music takes on that feeling. So when you listen to early Motown and the sound of it, it sounds way different than Motown of the early 70s. Because by the time Motown gets to the early 70s, they're in LA and the sound opens up a lot more. When you listen to New York rap, whether it be New York jazz or New York rap, it's loud, it's fast paced, it's hard, it's in your face. Why? Because New York is a very crowded place with a bunch of rude people. So is he gonna listen to
Hey,
music?
hey, 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 hey. You are exactly right. Don't be saying that on a Friday before Thanksgiving. Don't do that.
Yeah, New York is a crowded place with a
But
bunch
go
of
ahead.
yeah, but no disrespect. It ain't no rights or wrongs. It just is what it is. It's loud, it's crowded, so the music has to cut through that environment. That's where you get the boom, bah, boom, bah, boom,
Yeah,
bah.
that city is very grimy though.
Because you
You're right.
and so the
Uh,
music got to grind like that. Same thing with jazz. That's where you get that. That's when Coltrane was up in New York and he came out with that hard bop. That hard bop was out of tune. It was in your face. Charles Mingus is from LA, but when he went to New York and mastered hard bop, because that was the environment. DC, you know, go-go music. I can't stand go-go music because it's
oh,
sped up
we're gonna
funk.
get to that later. We're
Okay,
gonna get to that later.
okay,
But
I'll get to that. But then okay,
yeah,
then
let me ask. Juicy Jimmy sent me a
go
question.
ahead.
She said she couldn't come up, but she wanted to know how what your views are regarding the evolution of Memphis music, and how do you feel about the future of black music in general?
Memphis has had a brain drain during the Great Migration. because we Memphis blues, man. When we come to talking about what are you talking about R&B, funk, all this shit is based off Memphis blues, Memphis and the Delta. I know Memphis and the Delta are separate, but the Memphis blues and the Delta blues, that's where all our shit based off of. But Memphis had a brain drain throughout the 40s and the 50s. Maurice White's from Memphis, but he moved to Chicago before he started Earth and Fire. But Memphis, that Stax sound, they don't give enough credit because Stax, Isaac Hayes and Porter, that's some of the most soulful, grittiest. When you listen to some Memphis music, man, you better have some gravy, whatever. I don't care if you eating cereal, you better have some gravy with that shit. That music is so goddamn soulful out of Memphis. But Memphis has had a brain drain with a lot of its great talent going to other places. Memphis is now starting to settle back in, and the Memphis sound is coming back. And I think that Memphis is an area that we need to, cultivate live music again. Because the issue that we having, because she asked if music is coming back. Music will come back when black people reintroduce live instrumentation to our children. We create all this stuff, man. But like now, when I be out seeing stuff, a lot of our kids are too into they're too into the computer when it comes to music. And music, when you do everything through a computer, through a keyboard, it makes all the tones sharp, and it don't teach you how to feel music. You hear music, it sounds good, but you don't feel it. When you get in your instrument, and I don't want to sound grotesque or anything like that or overly sexual because it's early in the morning. But as a musician, you got to make love to your instrument. Music just happens between the beats. The beat is just where we, kind of remind us where we are. The music happens in between the beats. It happens in the groove. Music is sex. Music is in the pocket. And you got to have your instrument in your hand and you got to make love to that motherfucker. That's what music is. You can't make love to a goddamn computer. And that may sound counterintuitive to me selling that because I got a whole bunch of live drum sample packs on the internet that sell well. I record live drum packs because at least while those who are on the music, those who are on the computer, at least they can get a live feel in their sound. But we are too into that computer and we are too into sports. We got to get our kids back into music. Teach your daughters the harp, teach them the trumpet, the keyboard, the drums, and watch those little motherfuckers turn some new hip hop will be dead in 5 years, and it'll be something totally new that we created and that we totally own. And now that we have the wisdom as black adults, next time this is what we got to do as the black adults to answer your question in totality. As the black adults, whenever the kids come out with something new, we have to be the first generation that doesn't shit on it. In my study of music history, what happens is the black youth come out with a new sound. The black elders shit on it and say it don't sound like my music. The church demonizes it. And then those black people go and find an audience with white people who appreciate it. Those white people pay top dollar for the music while we crap on it and tell our kids they wrong for creating this new sound. It should have sounded like that. And then the musicians, what are they gonna do? They gonna go to where the money is. They paying me all this money to come to these white venues and white folks to spend $200 on a concert ticket, and black people complaining about they got to spend 50. So the music goes that way, and then we say, hey, they stole our music. No, partially, but we give them too much power. They didn't steal shit. We sat it on the table and they took it. What we do is we be sitting our stuff on the table and we marginalize our youth when they come up with a new sound. We can't do that. Only thing we can do is point them in the direction of where to innovate new sounds, highlight live instrumentation again, push that out there. And whatever they come out of it, we as the adults, we got to be ready to build infrastructure to own and control it. And at that point, we're going to change music and we're going to own and control it through perpetuity because us adults have the knowledge to four-wall whatever our 14 and 15-year-olds create.
Cool. All right. Let's get to the hand. Micah, yeah, go ahead, and then Rilla.
Okay. Peace, Dwann B. Peace, everybody in the chat. I just want to say this: like, do we continue to support the music that kind of degrades black people? Because we understand it's like now the cat is out of the bag. We understand the agenda behind the music, what was happening, to change the culture and how it influences people. negatively. Like we understand what the whole agenda is, but do we continue to support even artists that we supported then? Because you have artists like I think when Jay Z and Nas was going back and forth, Jay Z said something about how Nas will have like Black Girl Boss, but then he have Uchi Wally. So we'll continue to support these artists that would seen to promote a positive message. Like maybe when something goes wrong in the black community or something, they'll come out with this real positive song. But then you go about an album, is a bunch of music. We back playing, we back, killing and back stealing and back smashing each other's wives and all this nonsense. So it's like, what do we do? Do we continue to support these artists? I mean, they were our favorite artists growing up and stuff like that. And now you have younger artists coming up, and they're, even worse with the type of stuff that they put in the music and the negative messages. So do we continue to support that, and say, oh, it's just the culture or whatever? Or do we say, hey, it's enough, because this ain't the 80s no more. Ain't nobody, well, I'm not going to say what ain't nobody doing, but we don't have to do a lot of the things that we were doing back then in order to survive. There's a lot more opportunities now. So do we continue to support that and say, oh, that's just the story being told and sympathize and continue to just, take this trauma, or do we just say, hey, you know what, it's time to move on and we start to bash that type of music with that type of message, because it's not doing anything to help our culture.
Let me answer that for you.
All right.
We gotta be very clear. Life is both profane and profound. So is music. Music's always been profane, and it's also been very profound. It's been both. And as life, as humans, you could be the best, most moral person on earth, but let a chick walk through and at a dun dun, you gonna think whatever thoughts come. So music is going to reflect that. You got to go back. James Brown. Not only did he make "I'm Black and Not Proud," but he also had a song where he said, "Shake your money maker." What's a money maker? That's a woman who sells pussy. So profane music has always been around. BB King got a song called "Don't Answer the Door." If you sick, don't let the doctor come in. Matter of fact, don't let your mama come in. Talk to me. It's always been now. Memphis Slim got a song about killing somebody in a bar fight. I forgot the name of the song, but it dropped like in like '53. But it's talking about killing somebody in a bar fight. If I drink, I'm gonna stab somebody. That's always been in our music. You know what I mean? We can go back and talk about what's been going on in funk music. You got music talking about it. That's always going to be there. So you can't hold on. All right, you can't hold an artist to some high moral standard that me, you, or anybody you know don't live by. We all, no matter how clean we are, no matter how cool we are, we got some parts of our life that's fucked up. So the music is going to reflect that. With that being said, it comes down to balance. It comes down to balance. Now you can talk about something because still I still don't see anything wrong with NWA's music. People talk about it a whole lot. Look, I grew up in that part of LA. That's what we were seeing. NWA wasn't telling you to do it. NWA was saying, look, this is what we see. Again, music is a sonic interpretation of your immediate environment. So if you grow up in an area, if you grow up in a, if you grow up in an area where it's a lot of profane shit going on, there's gonna be some profane shit coming out of the music, and there are going to be people that listen to it because that is their experience. When Jelly Roll Morton brought jazz to the West Coast, he was a pimp. He brought prostitutes with him and opened up a hotel and pimped out of the same hotel he played jazz out of. So that just is. What we have to do is have that balance. Because I don't have an issue with a Juicy J song. As long as I follow that shit up with something as long as he follows it up with something that's gonna put something in my mind. Too Short wrote a prophetic song about the ghetto, and then turned around and wrote Cocktails. And I love Cocktails. Ain't nothing like pimping, just let it roll. I love that shit, but I also love his other music. It's all about balance. We have to Artists have to bring back balance. We ain't trying to be Puritans. Music is supposed to reflect every aspect of our life, the good and the bad. The thing is, you got to have that balance. And when it comes to supporting artists, let me tell you something about support. I was thinking about something. I do a 6 a.m. walk every day on Runyon Cane. Runyon Cane, for those who don't know LA, is Hollywood Hills. You walk from the bottom of Hollywood Hill to the top of the Hollywood Hill. When we get to the top, you're looking down on the Hollywood sign. I'm around. It's my black ass and a whole bunch of hunkies. I'm looking, man. These white folks is jogging in Yeezys. People are like talking about some black folks. We need to stop supporting Kanye. Look, we ain't the ones buying that shit. When I'm around here, it's Asian. I saw at least 3 pair of Yeezys on a dirt trail jogging this morning. They'll drop $2,000 on some shoes and jogging in holes. A lot of that real profane music, a lot of it really ain't us buying it. Real talk, the majority of the people buying that mainstream BS is Asians, white folks, Mexicans. Black folks buy it too. But who else are we really into? The homie La Russell. Look up La Russell out of Oakland. His audience is all black. And all he talks about is positivity and love. We got Kamasi Washington, jazz musician out here in LA. Robert Glasper. Robert Glasper is nothing but love and good music. His audience is black, 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 bliggity black. Erykah Badu, her music. When you're talking about Mos Def and that bitch ass nigga, I don't like even Talib, even though he a hoe ass nigga. His music, you know what I mean? And so, look, black folks, we still doing it. It's just not mainstream. But guess what? The mainstream ain't ever been our stream. The mainstream has always been the corniest of our music. Our corny music goes to mainstream. My father-in-law, Mr. Carmichael, he didn't win a Grammy for "I'll Be There" by the Jackson Five. He didn't win a Grammy for Zoom. He didn't win a Grammy for Brick House. He ran a Grammy for his Lionel Richie song, with a Truly, dancing on the ceiling. Dancing on the ceiling was a throwaway song for him. But that's the one that white folks spent $100 million, sold 100 million records on, and won a Grammy. The mainstream has always been a corny version of black music. That's all pop is. Pop is corny ass black music, and we gotta always remember that.
Cool. Appreciate that. Rilla Perry, go ahead. And make sure y'all tweet out this space, please, because there's a lot of knowledge being dropped in here. You can use it for non-FBAs.
Go ahead, Rilla.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? I got a few questions for you, Dwann B. I'm not sure if you following the hip hop scene this year, but if you are, I want to ask you what did you think was the best project of this year? And also, um, I want to know how did you feel about Kendrick Lamar's album that came out this year? And um, I like what you said earlier about it has to be a balance because um, man, I listened to West Side Gun, his album is fire, and I listened to Black Star, and ironically, they have a song together that just came out this month, and it's fire. So it's definitely a balance. You know what I'm saying? I get into the ignorant shit, but I can also listen to jazz and sit back and relax. So I definitely like what you said about that one. But you think you can answer my questions for me, brother?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I might have to add you repeat because we had 3 really good questions. I want to answer all 3. So if I don't answer one, come back on it and tell me which one I didn't answer. But I want to start off with what you talked about the hip hop. I listen to some hip hop. I do. I keep my ear to the ground with it. But my focus with my whole Incense and Ashtrays project is really the R&B side, the live music side of the game. The people who are doing the. I'm really up to date on everything going on in jazz and R&B as of today. Hip hop, that's more secondary for me. But my favorite project so far was the Nas album, the one that just dropped last week. I love that shit. Matter of fact, hell, we're gonna have a good Christmas because he sampled my father-in-law on that first song. And he sampled a song by the Commodores, "This Is Your Life," on that first song on the Nas album. So we're gonna have a pretty good Christmas this year. Um, so I like that, but it's just Nas coming back with Nas being an MC, rapping. I love that shit. Um, the other, but more so, I've been more so focused on the R&B and jazz side of it. On the R&B side of it, my favorite project so far was a song by my man J Mo, Jarris Mosey, and Charlie Burrell called "Milk and Honey." That was so cold. My favorite R&B album is Between Black Radio 3 by Robert Glasper and Corey Henry's and the Funk Apostles. They dropped an album. I forgot the name of it. But look up Corey Henry and the Funk Apostles. If he's in your town, you got to go see him live because his music on CD sounds good. But when you see him live, that motherfucker take you back to church. It's an experience. Um, Also on the jazz, also J Mo, my man Jarris Mosey more of a hippie soul style album that came out. There's something going on in music right now, and I'm going to write an article on it pretty soon on Incense and Ashtrays. I just have to do better research. But black people we're starting to take over. We're starting to come back and claim old genres. It's a black woman that's leading country right now. It's a young black dude named Catfish leading the blues. Kamasi Washington out of LA. He's a preeminent jazz artist in the world right now. On the soul side of the game, you know, you got Jasmine Sullivan. You got, I went to go see I went to go see Erica Badu last year at the Bowl. She sold out the Bowl, 18,000 seats. I'm about to buy tickets to see Jill Scott. I mean, R&B is really, really, really a worldwide thing, and like the whole neo soul sound, that's a major market in Japan and also Europe. We be thinking it's just hip hop. These motherfuckers is taking all our shit, especially that neo soul sound. That neo soul sound from the early late '90s, early 2000s, that shit has taken over major parts of Asia. You see what's going on with K-pop. I always say before, K-pop ain't nothing but R&B fried up in a wok. That's our shit. And so, but what's happening in 2022? There are a lot of black artists that are emerging that are really taking the sound. But as far as hip hop goes, my favorite new artist is La Russell out of Oakland. I like La Russell. This is artist out of the LA called TF. I fucks with him. Matter of fact, I got a show coming in the metaverse pretty soon. I'm going to have TF on it. I'm going to have J Mo. I'm gonna try to. I've got some other people. I can't name their names yet, but my music show is coming to the metaverse, to where I'm gonna introduce you to these artists, and then y'all gonna be able to put on your Oculus glasses and listen to them play their music. As far as what you said about the Kendrick album, I heard too much agenda in that album. Honestly, I like, and Kendrick's my favorite. I love Kendrick, and I'm always gonna love Kendrick for what he gave us, you know. But this last album was good, but you know, I kind of got my third eye. I did an album review on Incense and Ashtrays. If you song by song review, it's on incenseandashtrays.com if y'all want to go back and look it up. Where I played every song and I broke every song down in between the music. But yeah, I heard some things that let me know. Okay, between that and him leaving TDE, you know, I'm just looking at the layout of the land. He dressing weird now. You know, and he got a house over in Manhattan Beach, right down the street from Bruce's Beach. I don't trust them white folks in Manhattan Beach. He over there now. He dressing like a, you know, and he's talking about. So I just see a pivot in Kendrick's career. This last album wasn't a full pivot, but that next album that's coming out, man, that shit gonna be on. Let's all come together, black and brown. We all one bullshit. I guarantee that's the next album.
What I wanted to say was outside of Kendrick's coonery and everything, I thought the album was solid because of the R&B and jazz influences in the album. Also, Go-Go, you know, I'm from DC, Maryland, so Go-Go got a
Yeah,
special
throw them
place.
shots.
You said what, K Graph?
Throw them shots. Defend your music.
Yeah. So Go-Go got a special place in my heart. I grew up not being a fan of Go-Go, but I grew up around it. My dad, my brother used to always play Chuck Brown. So as I got older, I learned to appreciate the music, and it's definitely a beautiful art form. And also, Dwann B, when you get a chance, because I was listening to Kamasi Washington, and on my Apple Music, it suggested me to listen to Crumden. And Crumden, they have two albums with Leon Bridges, and man, those albums is solid, man, fire, bro. You should definitely give them a chance if you haven't already.
I'm gonna look them up, man. And Kamasi I saw Kamasi a couple weeks ago on Crenshaw, and he told me he worked on a new album, so he got some new shit coming out too. I appreciate that. I'm gonna check that out. But as far as Go-Go goes, I appreciate Go-Go, but it ain't my style. And then when I was in DC for the rally, I like what I do. Anytime I go to a new city, I play the music of that city, and by myself. So I got on one of them Lime scooters, and I went to all the monuments, and I was out on one of them scooters from like 10 at night to like 2 in the morning. Just it was warm and shit, so I was listening to Go-Go, and I get it because I understand why. Because again, that is the sound of the city. There's a certain vibration to DC that makes that kind of music pop. And then when we went to the after party, they were playing go-go. But even though I appreciate go-go, I see where it comes from, I don't like it. And, and the main reason why is because go-go is funk. Go-go is an extension of funk, but it's faster and it's ahead of the beat. And there's a lot of music on top, a lot of cowbells, a lot of stuff that pushes the music ahead. And personally, that's why we all gotta be mature enough to know the difference between something we don't like and its quality. The quality of go-go music is A1. It's just not my preference because my style of funk, the way I play the drums, and the way I feel music, I like being behind the beat. I like put my music a little bit slower. I like when I do use my aesthetics and the cowbells. And I like using that more for coloring of the music than I like to use it to drive the music. So it's the way the instrumentation is played in go-go is the reason why I'm not a big fan of it. But at the same time, when it comes to DC music, the Blackbirds, Donald Byrd, that more people don't understand the nucleus of neo soul is a combination of Donald Byrd, Roy Ayers. That whole Roy Ayers is from LA. Donald Byrd spent the majority of his life in DC. He taught at Howard. So I associate him more with DC. And the Blackbirds were his students at Howard. And they brought in that sound, that real breezy, airy, open sound. And then when you fuse that sound with the Philadelphia sound, that's how you get D'Angelo, Jill Scott, Music Soul Child, the Roots, and all that. It's a fusion of Philadelphia's vibration and that DC, Donald Byrd, LA, Roy Ayers, kind of laid back, relaxed, mellow vibe. So when I turned on some Donald Byrd when in DC, nigga, I was in heaven. So again, when it comes to music, it's you know, you're not gonna like everything, but black people created go-go. So since black people created, it's better than all the other shit that niggas play around the rest of the world.
Facts. Hey, since we in that region, how you feel about Baltimore club music?
I don't like it. I don't like LA club music either. Club music to me, club music sucks. I'm just club. I don't like it. I don't like club music because, and here's the reason why I don't like club music because I feel cheated. My generation, I'm 41 years old, first year millennial, born in 1981. We were cheated. Our music, the club bangers became a thing in the 2000s. Before the 2000s, the songs played in the club they were still good music. It just was at a tempo that made you want to dance, but the music itself was still good. When the 2000s came, that's when they said, "Okay, fuck making a quality song. We're just gonna dump a lot of 808. We're gonna dump a few highs in there. We're gonna get that. We're gonna get a 1-2 going so you can just sort of bob your head back and forth. We ain't gonna really make you dance. We just want you to kind of sit in the club and look at other motherfuckers." And so that became a thing in the 2000s. And so they took away quality music and then said, "Okay, we're just going to call it a club banger." No, when I go back to the 60s and the 70s and the 50s and the 40s and the 80s and the 90s, the club banger was still a good song that you could listen to when you going about your day. You didn't have to wait for the club to listen to music when Flashlight dropped. You didn't have to wait when Dancing on the Street dropped. When all that good music of the day, when all that stuff dropped, that wasn't separate from good music. So why, when my generation come, you got to say, okay, F the quality of a song. Let's just get something that's going to sound good through these 25 subwoofers we got in the studio, in the club. I don't like it. I don't like club music in LA. I don't like club music in Florida, DC, Atlanta. I don't like none of that shit. I want some quality music.
All right, nice. All right, now down south, that's where a lot of I guess hip hop had its reinvention. Who, why everybody? Again, let me see how I can ask this. What happened? Why do you think that artists like Three Stacks, like, because I've been seeing a lot of Three Stacks hate lately, and I don't like it. I don't know, maybe because he's getting older and he hasn't put out music in a while, but I think a lot of people forget the influence that Three Stacks had on a lot of these artists coming out. So, can you talk to that a little bit?
I love Three Stacks. Three Stacks is how that's music done right. Three Stacks, Big Boy, Dungeon Family, CeeLo, all of them. That's music done right. I'm about to say something about music out of Atlanta that might piss some people off, but we gotta. This ain't about coastal beefing. This is about getting our music right. And when music, especially the R&B scene, got relocated to Atlanta, it started out good with the face. It started out good in the '90s, but by the time we got to the 2000s, that's where musicality went to die. I know that's I don't want to piss nobody off, but we got to tell the truth. Atlanta is where music, the musicality of music, the sound of music, the lushness of music went to die. That's where it became cool to do an R&B song, and it started in New York with Bad Boy with the Uptown Records, and then Bad Boy made it a little bit worse. Bad Boy totally screwed off Faith Evans' career. How do you screw off Faith Evans' voice? But this is how you screw off Faith Evans' voice. You take a loop from a Chic song and that's her biggest hit. I never had love like this before. That's nothing but a vamp from a song. R&B isn't supposed to be sung over a damn vamp. R&B is supposed to trace the music. It's supposed to trace the emotion of the lyrics. You can listen to the Marvin Gaye "I Want You" album. That album is a piece of artwork. The way Leon Ware made that cinematic sound to go along with the music. That's what music is supposed to be. The music, the violins, the horns, the drums, the bass, the keys, the background singers are supposed to float the musicality of a song and interpret the message for you if you never understood a word that they said. That's why Michael Jackson could hit so hard across the world with people not knowing English because the music interpreted the song. So so Uptown Bad Boy starts pulling it away, pulling the musicality away, just making us R&B singers sing over a vamp. And then so now when you get to Atlanta, you get that fusion of hip hop and beat. That's what my if you look at my music tree, I have a section called hip hop and beat. That's basically what the successful fusion of the hip hop sound, the hip hop vamp over R&B. And Atlanta is where that really popped off, the hip hop and B sound. And so you now have a generation who, since the early 2000s, they haven't heard real lush, grand sounding music. Everything has been a dun 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 dun. I was in Atlanta when that shit dropped. I remember walking through. I was at some
Mm.
club down, and I don't remember the name of that club. It
Oh,
was a wood club, and I remember walking through that. And when Laffy Taffy dropped, and the whole floor is shaking, I'm like, "What the fuck is going on here?" Good club song, but when it came down to it, that's all we need to make a hit now? Dun, dun, dun. When I heard that shit, when it first dropped, I was like, okay, yeah, music is dead. Why am I saying all this? We now have 20-year-olds who grew up with basically these very simple, non-articulate sounds, no emotion, no nothing, no real artistry, and that's done. Again, I don't blame the artists. I blame the industry, the people who fund the music. It's their fault. It ain't our fault because the artist can lay down. I've been in the studio where the artist, the producer come in with some musically lush shit. The artist come up with some dope shit. Then the people in the suits and ties say, no, too much. We need something more simple that a elementary school kid can repeat. But all of that stuff happened when music became centered in Atlanta. That's when it all came together. And so now you got 20, 21 year olds that don't really understand musicality. Three Stacks is a musician. This dude's music and their whole sound does like it does the R&B model. They had live bass on a lot of that early music, a lot of his music, or live drum. The music when you listen to Aquemini, the music follows the music floats with the flow. That's how music is supposed to be done. But a lot of these motherfuckers weren't born when that happened. So when they go back and listen to that, it sounds foreign. It sounds different. To that generation, that's not music. Why? Because all they've heard was dun 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 or dun 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 dun. When the yeah dropped, I was like, okay, music is R&B is done. If this could be a hit, if we accept this shit as a hit, the musicality of music is gone. I said this shit when it dropped. I was like the old grumpy dude in my 20s because I just love music. But I saw the direction it was headed in. Now we're on the other side of that, and we're living with a generation that grew up with no musicality. All they heard was pre-programmed nonsense. So when they hear musicality, they don't know what it is.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
my bad. That was my kid. Hey, little girl. Hey, give me the line one time.
Okay.
Cut the check.
Cut the check. That's right.
All right. Now let's get to house music. I want to pick your brain on house music. Now, house music. Just give like a brief overview of house music for those who don't know and like who the true pioneers are.
Bumpy Knuckles is one of the pioneers of house, and I don't get the Chicago and Detroit people. I'm not getting in y'all fight. I see a polygenesis in the birth of house music, because at the end of the day, house music is just electric disco. That's all it is. Just like hip hop is just hip hop is electric is computerized funk. House music is computerized disco. That's all it is. And they took the instrumentation from us, and then after they took the instrumentation, before they after they took the instrumentation from us, the music industry stopped paying actual live musicians. So us being black people and the geniuses that we are, we said, okay, you're not paying bass players and bands anymore. You're not gonna teach us music. Fine, we'll come over here to this machine and we'll work this shit. And so that's what house music and techno is. It's just it's just electric disco and the disco sound. Disco is still live. That's why we as black people, me personally, I'm not the biggest disco fan. So by default, I'm not the biggest house and techno fan because I'm not the biggest fan of disco. But I still understand the musicality of disco, the lushness of the disco, the four on the floor, the whole sound wave of disco. That whole house, techno, disco sound. See, when black people have it, we be grooving and dancing off that shit. But the reason why white folks like today in today's world, they'll call that pop or they'll call it crossover. It's not crossover, it's not pop, it's disco. The reason why that's such a or they'll call it kids bop. Kids bop is also another evolution of disco. Um, but all that pop, all that K, all that white Britney Spears, that's disco. And so disco, white pop, house, techno, it's all the same family of music. And the reason why the world falls in love with that style of music is one, because it's fast. Again, black people, we dance between the beat. The rest of the world dance on the beat. They dance like pogo sticks, bouncing up and down and shit. We groove between the beat. That's why as a musician, you got to make love to your music, because all music happens between the beat. That's how we get down. So when we doing it, it's a tad bit slower, and it's a pocket to it. The rest of the world takes it and it becomes EDM, electronic dance music. That's disco, that's house, that's techno. That's all it is. It's all the same music. And it's a big music for them because the kick is four on the floor. As a drummer, they say put four on the floor. That's all it is. And those four on the floor are playing ahead of the music. So these people who can't dance, they know right when the next beat is coming. Ding, 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 ding. And they can do all that dumb, stupid looking dancing that they be doing. And so, but again, that's black music. So that's why I always bring that up. I just brought up this house and techno because, you know, this whole hip hop wave, that's the dominant society's way of getting us to say, okay, black people, yes, hip hop is yours. Go ahead and take it. Oh yeah, hip hop came from these black people out of New York. But what they ain't telling you is so that every other goddamn thing else playing on this planet right now. Everything. So if we stay focused on only hip hop, we about to give up 90% of our birthright because hip hop is 10% of what we putting out there on this earth right now. And house, disco, techno, that is still the sound of the world. And now it's just called kids bop, EDM, and they have country EDM. There's also something called world music. World music is house, disco, techno. That's world music. Not world music, world beat. World beat is just disco slash house. Doom, 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 doom. It's just a corny ass version of it. All that shit comes from that. So we got to remember that.
Cool. Appreciate that. All right. Before we close the space down, I got to go to the plantation. I want your pure, unfiltered opinion of reggae music?
Reggae is musty ass R&B.
Say that
That's
one
what
more
reggae
again.
is. Reggae is musty R&B. It's
As a
it's
Jamaican, I'm not offended. Go ahead.
it's musty R&B. Um, it is. Don't
I
think
only
that
say that
guitar.
because Sanchez pissed me off by stealing Shy's song and then making it hot. But
No,
I
but here's what.
go with your opinion because, you know, between the shit that I'm hearing now, they're talking about, oh, now they're gonna take anything glorifying violence off the radio and TV down there. I mean, that's a great step, but y'all let Vice Cartel rule your island for 20 years. I'll believe it when I see it.
Right,
But
right,
go
right,
ahead.
right, right. And I don't say that as an insult. We gotta remember, music has a smell to it. Music also has colors. Um, that's why Caribbean music has the steel drum and has that very colorful sound because people who grew up in tropical environments, they hear colors. Jamaican music has a lot of reggae has a lot of green and yellow tones to it, bright red. Those are the colors I see when I hear it, and it also has a smell to it. The way that guitar is played, on that upbeat, like it's different terminology that we give when we play music. Like if I want to put something real funky as a drummer, I tell if I'm producing a song, I'll tell the bass player to put some booty on it. You know, booty stinks. Booty is shit. But musically, you know what I'm talking about when I say put some booty on it. Musically, you know what I'm talking about when I say make it musty. And so, and it's a lot of musty motherfuckers. I ain't cracking no jokes though. Anyway, so R&B is played on the downbeat. Reggae music is R&B music played on the upbeat. When you listen to the old Chuck Berry, see, I'm emphasizing the downbeat. Reggae, it's the same beat, but same chord, same changes. Just a different emphasis on the accent from down to up. And so that's what reggae is. And we must always give credit to Johnny Nash because he's the person that went down to Jamaica and signed the Wailers to their first contract. And as a black American man that named Johnny Nash, the same person that made that song Sunshine Day, I can see clearly now that dude, he's the person that created the record label for the Wailers and then Bob Marley to take off because he liked that sound and he said, I want to make this sound international, and that's what he did. But reggae is R&B flipped from the downbeat to the upbeat. That's probably the best explanation I can give to it.
All right. I was looking at my YouTube just now, and somebody said that Jamaicans are now trying to claim that they wait. Let me. I gotta read this right because somebody said that Jamaicans had an influence on EDM. Where?
Spilling jerk chicken sauce on the keyboards.
Yo, okay, we spill our jerk chicken and gravy on the goddamn turntables. Leave us alone, man. You know we do. We know we do four things at once. Leave us alone. We go to work, and then we go play at the club. Then we go to church, and then we have to go take care of our kids and,
See,
and,
here's the
and get a
thing.
scam going. I
Let's
understand this.
go. See, this is the reason why I'm so specific when it comes to music because the only way we're going to grow is if we give proper respect to everyone and their innovations. There's a lot of great music that comes out of Jamaica and out of the Caribbean. I know if y'all follow my Instagram, you'll see me at a Latin jazz, at a Jamaican, at a reggae festival concert like clockwork. I probably go to live music events during the summer once or twice a week, and I listen to music around the world. So I appreciate it all. But at the same time, y'all people got to stop stepping on our toes. Black people see what's happening around the world. The world for the last 300 years got comfortable with stepping on our toes and us apologizing for them stepping on our toes. We're the generation that's saying, "Don't step on my toe." And what happens when you have somebody, when a bully has someone they've been bullying, and that person decides to stop being bullied? first reaction is gonna be anger. What do you mean? You feel entitled to step on somebody else's toes. You ain't done nothing before. So for a while, the last 5, 6 years, we've been saying, stop stepping on my toes. Stop stepping on my toes. Now in 2022, you stepping on my toes, I'm socking you in the nose. And so that's what's going on right now. These people are stepping on our toes, Fat Joe, Busta Rhymes. And I was at the Hollywood Bowl for Busta Rhymes concert, and I was backstage. And I didn't run across Busta, thank God. You know what I mean? I didn't want to, I don't want to cause I don't even think he know me like that. But I've said what I had to say about him. But I was there, and I still showed up, and I was at his show because I still appreciate his music. Busta's one of the greatest MCs ever. But you don't stop stepping on our motherfucking toes. This is our music. Again, music is a sonic interpretation of your immediate environment. The reason why there's no hip hop scene in Kingston is because Kingston don't have the vibration for hip hop. It doesn't have it. It has the vibration for other forms of glorious, great music, soca. It has the vibration of the steel drum, of rock steady. It has that vibration, but it don't have hip hop's vibration. Different beat. You guys see music in colors out of Jamaica. Everything is the music is more on top. It feels good. It's open. Well, the vibration of hip hop is your cousin, that white person that's oppressing you. Not only are they white, they live right across the town. You can see their wealth. And oftentimes, as black people quiet as kept, a lot of these crackers is our cousins when we go and look at our family history. So we have 300 or 400 years of because your side is the black side being disenfranchised and lynched out of your land. When if you go back 2 generations, your granddaddy also was this white dude, and he got kids on the other side of town sitting on all the wealth that we amassed. That goes into our music. That's what hip hop is. That's what funk is. That's what the blues is. It's an experience that's passed down through our blood, interpreted through our immediate sonic environment. That's what it is. So when you come from a whole other side of the world, y'all, I'm not saying y'all weren't, y'all were slaves too. Yeah, we get it. Y'all had a different form of oppression. And that form of oppression goes into your music. Be thankful for it and honor your ancestors and honor Bob Marley. Honor all them, the Wailers. Honor them with true respect because those guys, they honored where they got it from. They told you where the music came from. They told you they were very honest about where it came from because they had honor. All we saying is these new generations coming up, y'all have honor and respect too because we're not our parents. We're not gonna just let you step on our feet. We're gonna sock you in the fucking mouth. We a different generation, so people can either get in line with that and fall in love and have respect for themselves and their culture and a mutual respect for ours, or step across the line and get socked in the mouth rhetorically with love.
You trying to come up with?
And then you put a jerk chicken on them.
Like the type of lifestyles and stuff that's pushed on us and stuff that does influence our music. Our shit is a little bit more hardier, a little bit more like direct. It's not like it's more like based in reality because we was the black people that was forced to face the reality. Like everybody else, like yeah, they was colonized and stuff, but like y'all didn't have them there. Y'all didn't have them doing like heinous ass things to you. And when every form of communication that you had, from being able to read, from being able to write your own language, from being able to worship your own fucking God, when all of that's taken from you, it's kind of messed up and it's kind of dope and messed up in a way, but you create a clean slate when anything can be built up. Y'all still had like y'all cultural references to like still touched on. We didn't have anything at all. All we had, like Dwann was saying, all we had was our anger, our frustration, but also our desire to want to be better. But like our music, that's what makes our music different than other black people music around the world, is because it's that true pain manifested into like song, like to its maximum. That's all I got.
You're right, and that's why when we our music, that's why nobody sings like a Black American woman.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you 1,000. I'll give you 3,000 Black American women vocalists before we come to the next anybody else. You know what I mean?
And they the
Because when
predecessor
you listen
too.
to Patti LaBelle, when Patti LaBelle sings, Patti LaBelle is bringing that 400 years of generational trauma into a love song, and that's nothing about us. Here's something I want to point. I'm glad you brought that point up, brother, because I want to bring up a key point into our magic and our greatness as Black Americans. We are the ultimate alchemists. Yes, it's the pain, but listen to the music. It's joy. We transmute that shit. That's what alchemy is. You want to know what Black music is? Listen to George Clinton, One Nation Under a Groove. What's the line, the first line of that song? Here's a chance to dance our way out of our constrictions. That's deep, nigga. That's what I mean by like old music would tell you some real shit and it still be a part. One Nation is still a party song 50 years later. That's why I never accepted the whole club music genre post 2000. That's bullshit. You can create good music that's still a club banger. One Nation Under a Roof is still a club banger, but it's telling you, it's giving you a real metaphysical message and it's a true interpretation to how we as Black people handle our oppression. Here is a chance to dance our way out of our constrictions. Gonna be freaking up and down. Flashlight. That's music about turning on the light. You turn on the light in your mind, goddammit. You don't let these people oppress you. You turn on the flashlight. You turn on the neon light, the spotlight. And then when people Funkadelic had a character in all their music called Sir Nose, Devoid of Funk. Sir Nose, Devoid of Funk was an allegory for people who are too uptight, for people who don't. So when you listen to Aqua Bookie, we listen to I'm dancing. We so cool. We dance out of water underwater without getting wet. The bigger the headache, the bigger the pill. I mean, Parliament Funkadelic was metaphysical like a motherfucker, but they were really showing us how the pain and the agony and the bullshit, how we transmuted that into music that saved your life. Steve Arrington had a song on his play. I think it's the Player of the Year album, the album where he has his face looks like a Greek statue. He has a song called "Nobody Can Be You But You," and that song is full of booty, funky ass song. But that's a dance song. It feels good. But he's telling you, nobody can be you but you. You listen to D Train out of New York in the early '80s. They're talking about living on a higher vibration, lifting yourself up. Great dance music that gave you a metaphysical meaning of life. Michael Jackson's Off the Wall. Listen to Off the Wall. I'm going to do a breakdown of Off the Wall and Incense and Ashtrays pretty soon. The Off the Wall album was instructions on how to live your life. You keep on with the force. Use the force. Use the life force. What's the life force? Life force is sex. Use the life force to keep getting it on. That's life. You got to use it as a life force, not as something that you have a whole bunch of kids you can't take care of, but use it responsibly and use it as your life force to keep pushing on. Off the wall. You can't live your life by the constraints of the day. You can't live your life by what the hell these people are talking about. You better live that shit on your own terms. That whole album is a prophecy on how to live life. And that's what our music is. And we got to remember that. We have the pain, but that pain, we use our music to transmute the pain into messages of life. Earth and Fire got a song called Sail Away. Fall in love with love. We don't love love anymore. Stevie Wonder got a song called Love's in Need of Love Today. If love was in need of love in 1976, it's in need of life support right now. But our music, we transmuted that pain into lessons on passing to the next generation and to each other on how to live our life. And we use that pain to create the most beautiful love music ever. Is there a better love song than At Last by Etta James? Is there a better love song than The Agony and the Ecstasy by Smokey Robinson? I don't want to be cheating on my woman with this girl, but goddamn, some agony, but the ecstasy with it. That's life. When you listen, Smokey Robinson has a song called Easy. It'll be easier to take the wet from water and the dry from sand than it is to take my love from you. That's what our oppression and our experiences birth. The most beautiful music ever. And if you go back and listen to my Incense and Ashtrays I did this past Sunday with Barry White, You listen, our oppression gave us Barry White. Barry White was a gangster. This nigga used to carry a gun in his piano bench. My father-in-law,
Damn.
yeah, he was out of South Park, L.A. He used to steal hubcaps. Barry White was a thug. My father-in-law used to record with him, and he told me it was this one artist that wasn't getting the music right. He kind of came to the studio drunk, and Barry White was like, "Stop fucking around, Earl. Stop fucking around." Dude kept fucking around. Barry White picked that nigga up and slammed him through the piano bench and told my father-in-law, "I'll buy you a new bench." That was Barry White. Barry White used to, if you were kept being off of your music, Barry White would put a gun on you. You better get that motherfucking note right. That was Barry White. But then you listen to his music, it's the most sensual, graceful, beautiful music you'll ever find. We have master orchestrators. My father, Mr. Carmichael, Gene Page, Leon Ware, Paul Reiser. A lot of these cats are still living. Leon Ware just passed away. Paul Reiser's still living. They put in musical string and horn compositions that Mozart couldn't fuck with. That's what our oppression comes from. So we gotta always acknowledge our oppression, but we also gotta balance and stuff. We have to start balancing the conversation with now with we so dope. We went through all that and we made music of the highest vibration. Music so high when it got to your country and your culture, you said, fuck my native instrumentation, fuck our music. I want what them niggas is doing, even though I don't like them. Black Americans we've caused more generational divides in the world than anything ever. Because when our music comes to a new country, a new culture, the parents are saying, why are you listening to that? And the kids is saying, fuck you in Chinese to their parents. I want to listen to this nigga music. That's because our music is of the highest vibration. That's how dope of alchemists that we are.
Yes, sir. All right, Miss Val, you'll be the last one, and then we'll close down the space.
Okay, thank you, Kid Gravity and Dwann, for opening this space. Yeah, our music is the culture. We, from the cotton fields all the way up to present with rap. But what I wanted to speak on is how are we going to get our music where our musicians are benefiting from their music? And one thing you mentioned was the metaverse. I've been in several spaces where they've talked about blockchaining and metaverse also. Um, and I'm just want your ideas on how we can move forward with that so we can get our music out of other people's hands and where it benefits us, and also where we can document who did what, who started what. I think that would be a way to do that so people can't continue to claim our music as theirs.
Here's a great question. That this is now a time we're now living in a time of me over we. Wherever we see the holes, we got to be the person willing to fill that hole. Like I see the hole exactly where you see it as far as documenting. We need to document our music. So what I did was I created my Incense and Ashtrays project, incenseandashtrays.com. I created my music tree not only to tell you the history of where it comes from, but also so I can use my music publication to document where the music is now and where it's going and what's out there. And I use my platform on Instagram and Twitter. I'm always tweeting out, new artists and old artists where the music was done right, and new artists who do it right. That way, I'm turning people on to artists all the time because a lot of our best artists, people just don't know about them. Like my man Jairus Mosey, I interviewed him on Instance and Ashtrays. He's been winning Grammys. He done won Grammys writing songs for Anthony Hamilton, Jill Scott, Jasmine Sutherland, Anderson .Paak, but nobody knows who he is. He's probably the best guitar player on the planet right now, and he's black. And then we have black people going around talking about, well, we don't have no musicians no more. No, the dopest musicians on the planet are black. We just gotta we just gotta promote it. We just gotta document it. Then when a publication like mine puts it out there, we gotta retweet it. We gotta spread the word like wildfire, because that's a me thing, not a we thing. When we find the good people, we gotta put them out there. We gotta go to their concerts. We gotta buy their albums, because what they're doing now, like a lot of my friends who are independent artists, no, they're not making Beverly Hills money, but they're making good money because they found ways to monetize their stuff. They're putting it out there on streaming, but they're also putting music out there on Bandcamp and other sites where their faithful listeners are spending the money. Because one thing about the listener, when you put out some good music and the listener genuinely appreciates it, they're going to buy it. Album sales, the wax, the album is coming back. It's already back now. So you're finding artists like Catalyst. They're a jazz band out of Inglewood. You have JID, the Jazz is Dead series with Adrian Young and Ali Shaheed Muhammad. They're always putting out great music recorded in analog live, and then they sell the albums, actual vinyl. That's getting back. So the avenues for our artists to make money are coming back. They're out there. The apps are out there. It comes down to the artists. Do the artists want to be patient and take that route, or are they going to sign with the major? Because as long as as long as our artists are signing with majors, they're going to get screwed over. All majors do is find new ways to screw you over. The minute artists like Master P or Michael Jackson or Otis Redding figures it out, they change the rules. So we just got to know that they're always going to take our stuff if we're looking for mainstream approval. We as artists got to stop looking for mainstream approval, find your niche, find your audience, and cater to them. While at the same time, we as black consumers, where the consumer, where we go wrong, oftentimes we don't want to validate something until the white person validates it. Let's just tell the truth. Let's just tell the truth. What's the first thing black people say? We say stuff now that we never would have said 20 years ago when it comes to music, when it comes to hip hop. They'll be talking about Jay-Z and why Jay-Z is great, and then mention how many albums and Grammys he won. No real music fan give a damn about album sales and Grammys. The Grammys don't know shit about music, and neither does album sales. People buy the most dumb, mundane music out there, so it's a good chance if it sold a lot of albums, it was trash music. So we as a consumer have to stop valuing the top 100. We got to stop valuing Grammys. We got to stop valuing how many records somebody sold. None of that makes any difference. We got to stop ranking all of this. Who's your best top 10, the top 5, and this person versus that person. We as a consumer, we done turned music into a damn competition. We got to stop that crap and just like who you like, appreciate who you like, have conversations about who you like, and then maybe then that makes, if we have a conversation about our music, I'm more likely to listen to your suggestion and who you like than I am if we having a debate about music and why is this person on your list and not that person. That's gonna make me now automatically resistant to that artist because your crazy ass been arguing with me about them for the last 15 days. You know what I mean? So we as a consumer gotta stop that nonsense. We gotta like who we like, and then when we do talk about music, we gotta talk about it from an appreciative point of view. About I like this, I like that. Oh, you like that? I didn't really like that song, but you know what I mean. But I like that song. But there we can learn and teach each other who the good artists are, who the best artists are. But as a consumer, if we stick with this debate nonsense, and if as an artist you chasing the bag of mainstream, that's what's going to keep it to them. We got to become independent in our thought. We have to go back to validating the sound, not allowing the mainstream to validate us. That's where we went wrong in the last 20 years. We're now waiting for the mainstream to validate our music. And we're talking about what they're putting out. Like, again, going back to what I said earlier about Kanye. When this whole Kanye thing dropped, saw a lot of black people saying, man, we got to boycott Kanye. We this and we support him. We support him. No, nah, we kind of do, but no. They the ones that support Kanye. They, like, like I said, I was on Run Can. These niggas was in $2,000 Yeezys running up a dirt road. These are the people that, you know what I mean? But when we look at them as who the greats are, we can get caught up in that. Black folks and music in general has been moved on. There's so many new things going on right now, so many new artists, so much new good music out right now. But we as the adults are waiting for the mainstream to validate it. We got to stop that shit. And when we stop that shit, all that other shit, everything else falls.
My man. All right, I appreciate this, brother. I appreciate you coming through and dropping that knowledge. I appreciate it. Just let everybody know where they can find you at, and then we're gonna get up out of here.
Everywhere I'm at is at Dwann B. The same Dwann B you see here. That's my Twitter. That's my Instagram. That's my YouTube. Look at my YouTube channel. I'll be talking a lot of shit on YouTube, especially my late night smoke sessions. I drop a lot of wisdom on those nights. But yeah, I do all that. I have a lot of different business. Breakthroughas.org. That's my company where I work with families, and I have webinars on that website on how to communicate racism to your children. I got my books for sale on that website. I'm an author. I'm also a card reader, cardologist. Breakthrough cards is coming real soon. I do all kind of shit. So follow at Dwann B. You'll see it all.
Cool. All right, y'all. I appreciate everyone coming through and listening to the space. I hope y'all have a great weekend. And I shall be back on Twitter Space Monday. We're going to talk some serious politics with the family. So just watch out for that on my Twitter page. And also follow me on YouTube at Kick Gravity Beyond right after you follow Dwann B's channel.